All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another video. And today we're talking about, are you hypnotized? Are you still hypnotized by the 3D world, the world of Caesar? Or are you free? Do you have free will? Are you a free thinker? That's really what we're going to cover, what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to discuss a few things that might still be in your life or things that are happening in your life. That may give you insight to whether you're a slave to the 3D world still, or if you're actually free, okay? And I gotta say, most of us are still have some shackles on us. We're still slaves, okay? And the litmus test, what's gonna determine how we're gonna be able to judge whether or not we're free or not, is by how much internal stillness that you have throughout your day. How much internal stillness you have throughout your day. And, this is the quality. Whatever religion, or spiritual sector, you could talk about Hindus, Buddhists, even Islamic mystics, Christian mystics, the element that these people attain, the reason why. For example, if you go to India, you would seek out a really wise sage. What those sages, those gurus, the ability that they possess, and why people are so attracted to them, is because they are able to stay seated in a state of internal stillness. They are still internally. They are completely still internally. And when one becomes still internally and is able to walk through the world in a state of stillness, regardless of the chaos that is happening around them, that energy is godly energy. Internal stillness is God. Be still and know that you're God, right? If you're able to have internal stillness regardless of the chaos that's happening around you, you are possessing a major quality of God. And that's why these sages, these gurus, they're able to live in this state of internal stillness regardless of what's happening around them in the 3D world, the world of Caesar. So now we have to ask ourselves the question, how still are we internally? This past week, I've really been focusing on this. How still am I internally? I've realized that I'm actually not as still as I thought I was. And I'm going to give you guys the sort of practices that you can implement into your life right now to really reveal to yourself how still you are. Now, we live in a world of distraction. There's so much distraction. There's so much around us that is, especially with the phones, and especially with social media. It's so easy to distract ourselves. So what you want to do, if you want to embark on this, of course, embark on this journey, is for the next week, or really, you don't have to do a week. Do a day, okay, for the day. Unplug as much of the distractions to your internal stillness as possible. Okay. That means unplug your TV. Unplug all media sources. You could just do this for one day. Unplug the TV, unplug all media sources. Do not go on social media. Now, if it's a part of your business and you need to make a post for something and there's a specific conscious reason for going into your social media, okay, that's the exception. But I'm talking about going onto social media for reasons that you don't even know why you're on there. And you guys all know what I'm talking about when you have a couple seconds to spare when you're sitting on the bus or waiting in line at the post office, or you're just hanging out at home and you just don't know what else to do, and you pull up your social media, that's what I'm talking about. We're just going to completely cut that off. Okay. Completely cut that off. Do this for one day. Completely cut off all external distractions. Okay. When you're doing mundane activities such as folding your laundry or washing the dishes, a lot of the times we will put on something like music or something. We always have to have noise. Sit in the silence. Sit in the silence. Fold your laundry in silence. Wash your dishes in silence. If you go and you exercise somewhere and you usually listen to music, don't listen to music. Do it in silence. Do your workout in silence. As much as possible, do every activity throughout your day in silence. If this is uncomfortable for you, it is likely that you are a slave to your external world. It is likely that you are hypnotized right now. If it is uncomfortable for you to sit in silence, you are likely still a slave to the 3D world, which means you are in a constant state of reactivity to what is happening around you. Okay, this is what we want to break out of. Because, here's an example. This doesn't have to do with social media or anything. Let's say there's a person that you want to attract in your life, right? A lot of people really get a slap in the face when they're trying to manifest a specific person into their life. But let's say there's a specific person in your life, and it's clear that that person likes you, you like them. You have a spark, you have rapport, you talk to each other, you talk to one another. And let's say you're texting or something like that, and then that person stops texting you for a day. There's silence. There's internal silence. There's silence between you and that person now. There's no contact. What do you do? What is your initial reaction when that person doesn't respond to you? If your initial reaction is, oh my gosh, this person doesn't like me, they probably have another person in their lives, they stopped texting me, it means that they're not interested anymore, blah, 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 and your mind starts exploding with all these BS, unconscious realities, and you start falling into all these unconscious realities. That means you're a slave. Because you see what happened? You reacted to something that happened in the world of Caesar. You reacted to the 3D world. You see, you're a slave to the 3D world now because you're reacting to what's happening. If a person was in a godly state, a state of internal stillness, let's say they're texting that person, the person doesn't respond. Do they react? No. They go back to what? They go back to internal stillness. I'm at peace. I'm relieved. And from that state of internal stillness, they can choose how they'd like things to be. They could skip straight to the end. Say, screw the texting and the conversations. I can go into my mind and the reality that I desire, where I'm with that person. And before I go to bed tonight, I can indulge in that reality. I can imagine myself at the park with them, holding their hand, hugging them, embracing them, and I can go to sleep with a smile on my face. That's the difference between someone who's a god to their reality and a slave to their reality. The god does not react, but the slave does. I highly, 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 highly implore you to do this for one day. Do this for one day where you get rid of as many distractions as possible, as much noise, external noise as possible, and sit in stillness. Because when you sit in stillness, you'll see what your mind is doing. To be honest, it really has nothing to do with the social media. It really has nothing to do with, the news and all that. what it really has to do with is what's going on in your head. Because what you'll find is when you're sitting in internal stillness, your mind is still going to be presenting to you realities. And a lot of those realities may be realities that you actually don't want to reside in. But you'll find, you'll see that you'll fall asleep. You'll fall into these unconscious states. You'll fall into these unconscious thinking patterns. And you might be in that unconscious thinking pattern for 30 seconds, a minute, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, sometimes a whole day. You might be in that unconscious thinking pattern until you become aware that you're in this unconscious thinking pattern. And when you become aware of that, you wake up out of that and you say, why was I imagining myself suffering? Why was I imagining a conversation that I wouldn't want to have? Why was I imagining the worst case scenario? It's because you were asleep. You were a slave to your mind. You're a slave. You fell unconscious. You became unconscious. You fell asleep into unconscious states, which is what most of the world is doing right now. They fall asleep in unconscious states. I still do it. But when you can implement this practice of sitting in stillness, being in stillness, and then being comfortable being in stillness, what you find is you become more and more aware of when you fall asleep into these unconscious patterns. You wake up out of it and you say, why was I imagining that? That's not what I want. That's not what I desire. You return to internal stillness. And when you return to internal stillness, then you can have the choice of what you want to, whatever it is whatever reality you want to choose, right? So the core distinction here is we need to reach internal stillness so we have the choice. We have the choice of what reality we want to manifest. Okay, that's the godly state. That's the state of these sages and gurus, these Hindu sages, these Buddhist monks who are highly revered. They're able to reside in a state of internal stillness. So we all know, most of us have heard, when we studied the Vietnam War, I think there was a monk's name, the monk that burned himself. Let me see. Thich Quang Duc. That was the Vietnamese monk who, in protest, it wasn't protest, but it was a demonstration to end the Vietnamese War. And he was a monk that he sat in front of a popular plaza in Vietnam, and he covered himself in gasoline, sat in a deep meditation, and then burned his entire body while he sat in this internal state of stillness. So can you imagine being rooted in a state of internal stillness, the godly state, while your body completely burns and you are not even flinching? That is what's capable of us as human beings. So, and there are actually videos of this monk being burned alive while he just sits there in internal stillness and his body completely turns to ash. So this is what I'm talking about. That's a godly state. You think that monk was was a slave or a god? That monk was in a godly state. He was a master of his world, the master of his reality. So when I look at something like that, and then you have these situations where people are texting, you're texting your specific person that you want to manifest, and then they stop texting you, and then you immediately react and start getting emotional and start falling into unconscious states. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do when it comes to cleaning up our mind and reaching a state of internal stillness. And you'll find that when you are able to live your life in a state of internal stillness, what that gives you, it's free will. You don't have free will if you don't have internal stillness. Because if you are not still internally, all that you're doing, all your attention, your focus is just falling into unconscious states and falling into unconscious thinking patterns. It's constantly you're just asleep. You're in a dream state if you can't reach internal stillness. So that's why this is so important. That's why meditation is so important, and be able to sit in silence and be able to watch what your mind is doing without getting lost, without falling and becoming unconscious into these thinking patterns. To be able to watch it. And if you desire to entertain a reality, if you see a reality that comes up that's beautiful and it makes you feel good, okay, you're consciously choosing to indulge in that reality. That's the difference. But when you're asleep and when you don't have internal stillness, you're not consciously choosing anything. It's all happening unconsciously. You're just a slave who's programmed and hypnotized by your thinking patterns and your thoughts. So try this out, you guys, for a single day, if you can. Get rid of all the things that cloud your internal stillness. Get rid of the music, get rid of the social media, the Netflix, all that stuff. Unplug your TV. Maybe when you come home from work, you do everything in silence. Make your dinner in silence, fold your laundry in silence, wash your dishes in silence. At the end of the day, go sit in your room, meditate. You can have a journal and just practice watching your thoughts. And if there is a thought that really makes you feel good, if there's a reality that makes you feel good, okay, you can indulge in that reality. But the main difference is you are consciously choosing to indulge in that reality. Okay? What most people are going to find is that they fall into these unconscious thinking patterns, and they might be in that unconscious thinking pattern for a minute, for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, and then you wake up out of it. The power lies in you waking up out of that unconscious thinking pattern and waking up and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was thinking about that. You wake up. The more and more that you do this, the more and more you're able to consciously return to internal stillness and then consciously indulge in whatever reality that makes you feel the best. So go ahead and try that out, guys. That's going to conclude this video for you guys today. This is a topic that, of course, goes much deeper. But I just wanted to make us more aware, wake us up, get us out of these unconscious thinking patterns so that we can start choosing realities that are the most beautiful. So thank you again for tuning into this video. Have a beautiful week. Try this out, and I'll see you in the next video.